Hey folks, thanks for watching my monologue. I'd like to encourage you to visit Guns Etc. They're strong supporters of our president and the principles our country was founded upon. Guns Etc. is 10,200 square feet and it's a firearm lover's paradise. And for all your online firearms needs, just click on gunsetc.com. And if you like my monologues, please subscribe to our channel. Thanks. Welcome back and happy Monday, March 23rd, 2020. President Donald Trump has called the efforts to combat the virus, China virus, our big war. He has referred to himself as a wartime president and of his administration's efforts as a war against the virus. Last week, he spoke of the virus as an invisible enemy. And to provide confidence as well as calm, he has also iterated many times that this will not be forever, saying and tweeting, quote, "We cannot let the cure be worse than the problem. At the end of the 15-day period, we will make a decision as to which way we want to go," close quote. He and others have also spoken of the promise of chloroquine with azithromycin. State and local governments are also engaging with similar statements by governors and mayors, several of whom have issued and will issue shelter-in-place orders, quarantines, and travel bans. More will join soon. Where businesses have not been ordered to close, they have been restricted in what they can do or have been advised they should close or restrict service. Where enforced quarantines and shelter-in-place orders have not been mandated, they are being advised on a serious but volunteer basis. The National Guard has been mobilized and bailouts have been proposed in the trillions of dollars. Food and supplies are being both rationed and hoarded. And the president is criticized hourly for doing too much and not enough at the same time. For those who didn't live through World War II, I suppose this is a small window into what America looks like when it goes to war. Or is it? The word war is deployed, and quickly civil liberties, including travel, are being curbed while the economy is melting, and fast. But the U.S. military is not invading anywhere. Artillery is not being fired. Ordnance is not being dropped. This all has the domestic attributes of war, with much of life disrupted and an economy held in abeyance, but we know it's not really a war. Not really. Daily, the television and cable chyrons show numbers of sick and numbers of dead. In the U.S., as of this speaking, those deaths are pushing up towards about 520. More and more are beginning to question what lawyers call redressability, however. Is the response to the virus equal to the problem? Admittedly, we don't know the full consequences of the virus, and the smartest of non-governmental analysts admit we're dealing with incomplete data. Still, we see an economy and people in lockdown, ordered and advised and self-imposed, trillions lost and wiped out, and taxes suspended. Yet, 520 dead. Each death sad, horrible. Still, 520. We have had other non-kinetic wars before. We used to hear a lot about the war on drugs. Usually that phrase was used as a pejorative, describing tough-on-crime legislation and action to arrest distributors and dealers of illegal drugs, to enhance and enforce prevention, and to mandate treatment for routine abusers and addicts who fed the illicit markets, caused harm to themselves, their families, their colleagues, and others. Perhaps war was a good word, perhaps not. But the efforts were aimed at a problem that took the lives of some 870,000 Americans over the past 3 decades. The U.S. congratulating itself. Think about this. We are congratulating ourselves for reducing drug deaths last year to 67,376. Today, we worry about 520 and climbing. To paraphrase the Manhattan Institute's Heather McDonald, we are engaging in the volitional destruction of the economy and causing unbridled panic over a number we don't know we will reach, but most think will not surpass the combined annual death toll of the regular flu and annual traffic deaths. Never mind opioid deaths. But now we know what a war on drugs might have looked like, a real one, though without the attendant violence we ask our military to wage on enemies in standard wars. Here, the cause is the prevention of the spread of a virus. But the measures being undertaken now will have far-reaching and potentially worse consequences. Many are now pointing to isolation as potentially leading to more suicide, more opioid abuse, and more domestic abuse. Pandemics we also waged wars on. We'll soon start to see the consequences of lost wages, and the elderly, who are most at risk for their physical health, are also now most vulnerable from the economic consequences as their nest eggs and retirements evaporate by the day. What a sane society needs to ask is the national fatality rate of the disease, and what is the result of losing everything else? As of now, we know the first number, 2.1%, if you catch it, a big if. We have no idea of the risk of losing everything else. Did I say 2.1%? I meant 1.2%. I'm sorry. The word if should ring a bell. In his poem of that title, Rudyard Kipling mourned, "Don't lose your head when all about you are losing theirs." As one economist told us, we have gone from a crisis, from an act of nature, to a crisis that is man-made, from the stupidity of shutting down our economic engines. I don't know how serious this virus will be, but I do know if the economy stays paralyzed for another month, the carnage will be in the trillions of dollars. The health impact alone from bankruptcies, unemployment, and isolation could be worse than the disease. And we aren't dealing with 870,000 deaths due to illegal drugs that were man-made and man-caused. One wonders how those 870,000 souls would have fared if we really did wage what was called a drug war, knowing what such domestic wars look like now, today. We worry more about the war we are in now than we did that drug war, don't we? Every war has its catchphrases and watchwords, and should. Today, one important word is missing: proportionality. Now, if I might, a word about the bailout legislation. Joy Pullman put it well. If Republicans negotiated like Democrats do, they demand the decommissioning of the U.S. Department of Education and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and the privatization of student loans and the return of welfare to the states and the privatization of Social Security, all as part of the Corona bailout. If we negotiated like Democrats, that's what we'd do. They are in an odd mode, not wanting a crisis to go to waste, the Democrats. As I gather, they are thinking timelines again, timelines and politics. I'd like to think all of our China virus problems will be over shortly, but I'm pretty sure even the Democrats know that we'll be in through it no later than the end of the summer. And once we come through it strong, who will get the credit? You guessed it, the aforementioned president. You know, the one who was impeached forever. Good night. How small does that impeachment sound now? Impeachment? He was impeached? Are you kidding me? That seems like it was 10 years ago. The real point, the Democrats know we'll come through this, and the president, as any president who did well in a black swan event, will look better than before. So why not, they must think, try and jam all their desiderata into legislation of any kind, emergency or otherwise? After all, they could be banished to Coventry in November. So what are the Democrats doing? Oh, trying to wedge in the Green New Deal, which come January of next year is going to be looking like the brown dead distraction. Here's what they've been up to. I thank Guy Benson and his sources for this. Unprecedented collective bargaining powers for unions, increased fuel emission standards for airlines, and expansion of wind and solar tax credits. As the most important congressman from South Carolina, Jim Clyburn, remember him, the one who saved Joe Biden's campaign, and 2 weeks ago referred to the president as Adolf Hitler, he said last week about the upcoming bailouts, quote, "This is a tremendous opportunity to restructure things to fit our vision," quote, unquote. No, Jim, it isn't. This is a sad moment to try and bail out hurting people, the working class and the donor class in our charities. It's a sad moment. You know, these are the people the Democratic Party used to say it cared about. I'm seeing Democratic legislation to not let political correctness go to waste either. They're proposing legislation for pay equity among racial and ethnic lines and enforcements for corporate board diversity. It's not only unnecessary, it's absurd. There are no more politically correct places in the world outside the university than the corporate boardrooms and human resource departments. What they want is new government board oversight of all this. More government in the name of more racial and ethnic bean counting. This, as Steve Haywood reminds us, comes close to what people like Nancy Pelosi were protesting at the end of January. Remember what she protested at the end of January? A travel ban from China. You bet. She tweeted, quote, "The Trump administration's un-American travel ban is a threat to our security, our values, and the rule of law." January 29th, close quote. Things you wish were never said. But you won't get that from CNN. For that kind of information, you have to go to those who truly do watch the governors, places like Powerline. When you realize our cultural governors are in fact the Speaker of the House, her caucus, and the media, the time to stop believing them was many years ago. The time to take it more seriously than ever, their bias, their investment in chaos theory, their agitation, that time is now. I'm Seth Leibsohn. We'll be right back.